What's up, everyone? It's your boy Gojo here, and today we're celebrating 10 subscriber special of Giblet's channel. And we're gonna do that by putting on a cosplay and being a little bit edgy. Hey, everyone, it's Giblet, and today, yeah, it's a really special day. I hit 10 subscribers, I think about 2 days ago, and we've since shot up to 11. I haven't checked today, but we might be at 12 even. So I thought what I'd do is an anime protagonist tier list. I thought it was appropriate that I get into character. So anime is a big part of my life, and I've watched quite a few animes, mostly long form shonen, and of course the main character is pretty important. So I've got a few of the characters here from the main anime I've watched. Some of them are still ongoing, so we don't have too much to go off of with those characters. But we're going to look at 5 criteria. First is going to be the originality of the character. Second is going to be the character development. Third is going to be the entertainment factor of that character. Fourth is going to be my personal preference. And fifth is going to be the aura that that character brings to the anime. So, let's get into it. All right. So, first up, we have Akira Kudo. He's from Devilman Crybaby, and this is like not a super popular series, but a really original show that I enjoyed a lot. It actually left me with quite an impression. And he's the MC. He has a pretty standard story, going from like the weak kind of person who inherits a big power and becomes super strong. But I think he's a really well fleshed out character. He's not too one dimensional. He goes through a bunch of moral dilemmas as he gets his powers and defeats more and more opponents. But he still stays pretty vulnerable, which I like. I'm not too much of a fan of the superhero, superhuman, unstoppable main character that never has to change. And the ending of the anime is super moving due to his kind of, his efforts. So I'm gonna set the tone and place him. Mm, I'm actually gonna place him as an S tier. I know we're starting high, but I really think he's a well thought out character. Super cool, very entertaining. Has a lot of sides to him. Next is gonna be Ash Ketchum. We're just putting him in B tier. It's just Ash. Like, there's not too much to say. He's a pretty cookie cutter, good guy Greg kind of protagonist. He goes along with Pokemon. He makes friends. He wants to be the best, like no one ever was. He's a pretty good Pokemaster. Kind and good to his Pokemon. But there's not too much to say about Ash. So he's quite likable. But I'll just put him into B tier for now. I don't think I'll need to revise this tier list. I'm a bit of a one take Tom, so we're going to keep him there for now. Next is Asta. And you can see we're going to put him straight into Sparky here. This is a unique tier for this list. It's not necessarily the worst tier, but I mean, I think we all know these characters. He's got Sparky hair. He wants to protect his friends. He's super strong. He's kind of cool because his character doesn't have any magic powers. That's the fundamental, draw card he has, is that he's really different because he doesn't have any magic powers and everyone has magic powers and he just, kind of helps everyone despite his, weakness. But yeah, he's loud. He just trains hard. Um, super strong. There's not too much to say about him. He can be, yeah, a little bit annoying. I found that as the series went on, he became a little bit more interesting, but yeah, he doesn't change too much. So Alpha's going to go into Sparky hair. And Sparky hair is not exclusively people with sparky hair alone. It's a kind of vibe that you'll understand. Next, Bucky Hanma. He's going to A tier for a few reasons. I mean, the whole show of Bucky is just super unique and entertaining and hilarious. And Bucky has some pretty decent character progression. In the beginning, he's got this hectic story with like conflict with his dad and all that sort of thing. But in the beginning, he's pretty, mellow, I would say. And I mean, he kicks everyone's ass, but in the later seasons, he becomes a bit more ruthless and probably, I guess, a bit closer to his dad, assuming the role of being like immensely strong. He has some pretty decent character progression, but like all things in Bucky, is a bit of a meme. Key moment for me was, I can't remember which season, but he trains by using his imagination to create opponents, invisible opponents. He has this like basement training ground constructed, and he imagines a human-sized praying mantis that routinely annihilates him. And that's just a good demonstration of his determination and the ridiculousness of the anime. So I'd put him at A tier. You always want to see Bucky. You always want to see what he's going to pull out. And he has a couple sides to him. There's a little bit with his story. Next up, we got Boruto. Now, a lot of people might want to put Boruto in Baki hair tier list. Um, I'd honestly argue that Naruto from the first original Naruto is more of a Baki hair boy than Boruto. But I think I think I'll put Boruto in B tier. Um, he's not super original. He's pretty fun, but he relies a bit too much on being like determined and protect everyone, and he's pretty much like his dad in his motivations. I do like that he tries to separate himself from Naruto, who's his dad, but he's better than he could have been if they just copy pasted him as Naruto's son. So he has a bit of character progression, especially later on. He becomes a bit more, darkened by the events he goes through. So I'd put him at a pretty solid B tier. Put him over Ash, because that's just what I'll do. Next, we had Edward Elric. Edward Elric, I think, is a straight up A tier protagonist. Um, he's got really cool powers, and he's got a pretty, like likable personality and a very endearing nature. He's really trying hard to save his brother, right? His brother. It's been a while since I watched some of these animes. Forgive me if I'm not exactly accurate in the lore and that. But he's really trying to save his brother. He is super determined and it's pretty selfless. He'll do anything to save his brother. And later on, he becomes ruthless. It can get pretty violent in Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. So I'm gonna put him as a solid A tier. You want to see what happens with him. He never feels bland or annoying. He progresses pretty well, and he's just got an interesting story. He's a pretty original character. Next, Eren Yeager. Okay, this is quite a divisive main character, protagonist, I would say. Attack on Titan is obviously one of the greatest animes, and I actually only finished it recently. I hadn't watched seasons 3 and 4 and 4.5, final part 2 or whatever. I like what they did with Eren, but I don't think. mm, I think he's a little bit overshadowed by some of the characters in the show with more aura. You think of Levi, you think of Mikasa, these are like stone cold, uber determined kind of characters. So I can't put him in B tier, that's for sure. So I'll put him in A tier because his character does have some pretty cool development. Initially, I think he's super like, focused on like revenge, and that is really intense. Revenge for the Titans attacking his village, and he has this like bloodthirst. Even though he's pretty weak, he like does anything in his power to stop the Titans. A little bit predictable with how the progression moves along. But by the end, he becomes a pretty interesting character. So that's why I'll put him in A tier. I think he's a low A tier. I don't find him more interesting necessarily than Edward and Bucky. Bucky's a bit unique. Uh, he reminds me a little bit of Frodo from Lord of the Rings because by the end of the series, he's kind of broken apart, just like in Lord of the Rings, from the bird they both carry and the sacrifice they need to make. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with him at the bottom of A. Gintoki Sakata from Gintama, one of my all-time favorite animes and easily my favorite comedy anime. He's the protagonist there, and man, Gintoki is going into the GOAT tier. If anyone has watched Gintama, you'll kind of know why, because he's a character that starts off kind of seems like a bit lazy and a bum. He's running the part-time, odd jobs kind of business with some random people working for him. But as the story goes on, besides him being endearing and funny, his character does actually have quite an incredible level of depth to it. And later on, you find out that he was part of a big war, and he's kind of recovering from that intensity. And his character develops a lot. His storyline develops, and he really holds the show together. Not that it needs to be held together. Like the characters are great, the storyline is pretty simple, but he just has a presence. So any scene he steps into, he's taking charge of that. So I'm gonna put him as my first goat. There's not gonna be many up here, and I think Gintoki deserves the spot up there. Okay, next up we have Son Goku. Goku, Goku's pretty good. Um, I'll say Goku's an A tier, and I'll tell you why. I think he's above Eren. Uh, Goku's, you know, Dragon Ball Z was the first anime I really watched, and I think that Goku's great, but he's a bit predictable. You kind of know that he's going to fight and he's going to win, or he's going to lose, and he's going to die, and he's going to go to heaven and train. There's one of those flow diagrams. It's like if Goku wins, okay, talk ends. If he loses, did Goku die? Yes. Okay, go to heaven, train with King Kai. No. Okay, power up into Super Saiyan 3. Did Goku train with King Kai? Yes. Okay, come back to life and blah blah blah. So, although Goku is really awesome and the show is awesome, he's predictable, but there's very few anime moments as sharp as Goku going Super Saiyan for the first time. So for that reason, I can't really place him below A tier. Also the kind of significance, cultural impact of his character can't be understated. Then we have Gon. Gon, I'm going to put above Goku, and I think even put him above Edward as well. Hunter x Hunter is a fantastic anime. I watched it pretty late to the party. I don't know, 20 years after it was released, but really great story. And from the beginning, Gon has a presence about him. He's kind of just training by himself, but you have a real faith in him that he's going to get strong, as opposed to someone like Naruto when he's young. He's a bit of a troublemaker. You're not quite sure. He doesn't have this aura about him. Gon has that immediately, and he goes through quite a lot of changes from this kind of innocent boy who's really ambitious to, yeah, anyone who's watched Hunter knows that by the end, it's pretty hectic. And he has to be a pretty strong main character because he's sitting there with Killua, who's insane and kind of would steal the show in most animes because he's so cold. So I think that Gon is going to sit in a high A tier spot. Okay, next up, Guts. I'm gonna put Guts in a lower A tier above Eren. I think that yeah, Guts is great. The anime Berserk is great. I didn't read the manga. I really enjoy the anime, but besides him having this cool origin story, I don't feel that his character demands as much attention as someone like, Akira or Gintoki. It's kind of more story driven, I would say. But he's really awesome because he shows this level of vulnerability, despite him being this kind of Terminator, swinging this big old sword from a young age. He's still a human being in a world where there's all these crazy demons and devils. And him fighting like Zod, him fighting the hundreds of soldiers, those scenes are ingrained into my mind because of how much of a badass he's shown to be in those scenes. So he's kind of determined, he's powerful, he's strong, but I wouldn't place him in a super high A tier position. But I do love Guts. Next up, we have our second S tier character. Protagonist is going to be Hyakimaru. Anyone hasn't watched Dororo, I really, really recommend giving it a watch. It's not a particularly long anime, I think just a few seasons, but it's actually a reboot of an anime, the one I watched at least, that was made decades ago. I can't remember when, a long time ago. And Hyakimaru is the main character. It's got a terrible, tragic backstory. He's like born and basically cursed or something, and he loses all of his senses. He loses all five senses, and he loses all of his limbs. No arms, no legs, no sight, touch, smell, you know, no premonitions, no third eye, no sixth sense, nothing. And his adventure is about, reclaiming his body basically from the people that stole it from him, the evil people. From the beginning, he's got your attention. You just see him dancing up foes and this determination in him, despite him being non-verbal and that sort of thing. He just holds the show really together. And each time he regains one of his five senses, there's a bit of depth that's further added to his character. And as much as he starts out as like this ruthless, I'm just doing it to save myself type of person, gets some friends along the way, and his heart kind of opens up and he shows a lot of growth. So for that reason, he's going into that tier. And we have my boy Ichigo. So Ichigo, like, I love Bleach, especially hot now with Thousand Year Blood War, going strong. But Ichigo, kind of mid. Kind of mid. I said what I said. Like, he's cool. He wants to help his friends. His powers are really awesome, but I don't find him anywhere near being the most interesting or the most hardcore character in Bleach. He's pretty cookie cutter. I want to save my friends. I'm a good guy. I'll do anything to, rescue my friends. I'll die for them. I'll sacrifice myself. So that's pretty standard. But his dynamic with his Zanpakuto and his Hollow side, I think, do save him from somewhere like a low B tier or a C tier because he has different dimensions to his personality. Like in the Soul Society invasion arc, the first time he speaks to Zanpakuto, those scenes are stored in the memory bank of my mind forever, just like with the music and the setting. His during his fight with Zaraki, spoiler alert for a 20-year-old anime, but during his fight with Zaraki when he needs to power up, him speaking to his Zanpakuto is like so kind of deep and just top. But he's pretty standard, so he's going in B10. But he is above Boruto and Ash. Next up, we have Kirito. Kirito from Sword Art Online. Love the anime. I watched it when it was released about, I don't know, 12, 13 years ago now. It really, as a teenage boy at the time, that romance between Kirito and Asuna was, I'm sure, the ideal for many people. But he's cool. He's like the solo leveling. I'm gonna do this on my own. I don't want to get close to anyone type of character. He gets quite a bit of progression and development when he loses the party that he joined, where he's like super high level, and then he helps these low level people out, and they end up getting into trouble. So that really shows his vulnerability early on. Um, so his character grows from there, but beyond that, he kind of falls in love, and then he just solos everyone. Doesn't show much change. Another pretty basic cookie cutter solo save the world guy. I didn't watch beyond season two, just a disclaimer about Sword Art Online, because I felt that the stuff with his cousin, you know what I'm saying, got a bit weird, and I don't know if he really became more interesting after that. But yeah, I just want to put a disclaimer. I only watched at the end of season two, but he mid. He's not that interesting. Next up, we have Kuroko from Kuroko no Basket. I would say Kuroko is a really awesome character. The anime in general is cool. It's probably the only sports anime I've watched. I think the only sports anime I've watched fully, which you can't lucky as a sports anime, combat sports, I guess. So I'm gonna place him at mid A tier because there's a lot of big characters, literally, in Kuroko no Basket. It's basketball, and Kuroko is kind of the short guy. He was part of this prestigious team, but he's really short compared. And he isn't very athletic by any means, but he's super strategic. He's not a protagonist in the conventional sense because he does share a lot of the spotlight. So the story really is about the team, but he's got aura, that's for sure. With that ghost 3-pointer that he hits, he's always confident despite facing off against these terrifying, players from their high school team, the Big Five guys, and I think he's really great. He doesn't progress much, but he doesn't need to. The story doesn't demand that so much. He's just strategic genius. He gets some skills, and it's a pleasure to have on the screen. So he's gonna sit in mid A tier for that. Next up, this one is gonna ruffle a few feathers. I know that to be true. Light Yagami. We're gonna have to put him in B tier, guys. This is how it's gonna have to be. Light is, yeah, I love Death Note. Just saying, Death Note is one of my favorite animes, and I actually rewatched it last year for the first time in about 10 years. So I gave it a good rewatch, and I'm an L stand. That's the hill I'll die on, is that L defeated Light. Straight up, I said what I said. That's the end of the story. Light had so many advantages beyond like literal superhuman powers. He got even more powers and help, which eventually culminated in him defeating L. So if L was protagonist, I'd probably put him in top of A, S tier easily. Light becomes, I don't know, early on he's kind of well put together. He's smart. He has this goal of being the arbiter of justice in the world, but his downfall from basically, I don't know, bloodlust of being able to just ask anyone he wants to happens a bit quickly, and he becomes this selfish, corrupted kind of person. I think they could have done more with his character. I don't like that near the end of the show. It seemed like he abandoned his original path entirely. I would have liked him to touch on to the fact that he's there to make the world a better place. So his end was interesting, but I just think the character could have held together more. I feel like in the latter half in of the series, he was a bit washed. You know what I'm saying? So I would say that's how I feel about Lat. He's going to sit there. Pretty happy with how we're looking so far. Next up, Luffy. Luffy, I think, again, I haven't watched the whole of One Piece, but I would say he's a high A tier. He breaks the stereotypical mold, I think, of the NASCAR main character who wants to help everyone. You could argue he's a little bit selfish in some ways, despite kind of saving people all the time, but he has his goal of becoming Pirate King, and he can be a bit mean to people along the way to achieve his goal. Of course, he does the right thing basically every time, but he has huge aura. Marineford is one of the, I don't know, the sickest kind of moments in any anime main character kind of moment. And I think he's a really cool main character. He's funny, he's original, and he's not just like, oh, I just want to help everyone. So I'm gonna put him high A. Midoriya, he's not exactly spiky here, I would say. I would put him in above Boruto in B tier. He's a nice guy. Starts off without powers, gets powers, shows some hard work and determination from a young age. It's pretty endearing, but there's not too much more to him than that. He's one of those main characters that pretty much just sits there as a cookie cutter good guy and allows the co-characters to shine. So I would say he's a pretty mid protagonist. But later on, when he goes through like his own turmoil and tries to do things on his own, does get a bit of depth to him, becoming a bit more darker and cynical. Next, we have Mob. No, we don't have Mob. Yes, we do have Mob because I put two pictures of Mob. Mob I'm putting at a, I would say a pretty solid A tier. Both Mobs are going to go there. Mob Psycho is a great anime, short and sweet, very original and different anime with quite a unique animation style. I find Mob from the beginning doesn't change too much, but he's got massive aura. He just has the supreme confidence in himself and a bit of a detachment from challenge and suffering. Uh, he's trying to keep this sort of power and that he doesn't quite understand. But yeah, he's funny. He's got a cool aesthetic with the solid bowl cuts. Like he's got to be the goat of anime bowl cuts. I really like him. I love the anime. Seriously recommend you guys check it out if you haven't seen it. But I'll put him at a mid A tier for now. Next up, Samurai Champloo, Mugen, Fu, Jin, straight to goat. They're unique in the sense that the story isn't exactly about one of them. You could argue that it's about Fu because she is going to find the Sunflower Samurai. They all work together as a trio of protagonists, and I mean, each has their super unique vibe to them, and they have this kind of sense from the beginning that there's more than meets the eye with all of them. The soundtrack and the setting of Samurai Champloo, super awesome. If you haven't watched it, you need to watch it. It's a cult classic. One of probably the top five animes that I would recommend to people. It's pretty short and sweet, and each of these characters have such a different background, and them coming together in the series just makes this super awesome and unique group of people that I really enjoy. Great anime, goat protagonists slash protagonists, putting them right at the top. I'd say over Gintoki. Next we have Naruto. Ah, I love Naruto. It's my favorite anime. You could say that almost without a doubt. But I don't think him as a protagonist is worthy of being a goat. So I'm going to put him in S tier, largely due to my personal bias. Can't deny that. But besides having a pretty standard role of having the demon inside of him and becoming stronger, he has an incredible journey filled with so many cool characters along the way and so many relationships that he develops. So many key moments with other characters that develop him, like his relationship with Jiraiya, Kakashi, connecting with Obito. It's actually too many to list, you know. And I think with the wealth of experiences he has and his, it's not just like he rams his head into a wall to get stronger. He has to go on this pretty spiritual journey, I would say, and work on his relationship with Kurama. I think that makes him a really great main character, and that is why I'm putting him in S tier. He has aura, like even this picture here, you can see it's from the arc, the Pain Invasion arc, and him arriving on Gambito and with the frogs is you could watch that a million times. So he's an S tier. Natsu Dragneel. We all know where he's going. He's going straight to Sparky here, tier list. He's below Asta. He's uh, just so one-dimensional, and they always leverage that little fan service of him and the female characters, and he just like never changes. Just wants to defend everyone, and he's like, "I'm gonna beat you up if you hurt my friends, but I'm not gonna kill you because I'm a good guy." And that's basically it. He has spiky hair. That's where he's gonna stay. Not too much to say about him. Yeah, that's basically it. Rintaro from Steins Gate, probably my favorite sci-fi anime. Another classic that's not as popular, but if you're into sci-fi and mystery and mind-bending anime, 100% you're gonna check out Steins Gate. I'm gonna put him at a really high A tier because he's such an original character, and he has this kind of, this mask that he puts on from being like the mad scientist, and he's kind of always joking around, and he's never taking things seriously. But he has a pretty deep, I wouldn't say a deep backstory because there's not too much about his backstory, but his relationship with his dear friend and the journey he goes through to try and save her is probably one of the most emotional I've seen in anime. I watched it about 10 years ago, and I just rewatched Steins Gate last year, and that's one of the animes that stuck with me because of his like pain and the suffering he goes through to really save his friends. So I'm putting him at very close to being S tier. He's a great character. It's a great anime. I really like Rintaro. Saitama, he has to be in B tier. I'm sorry, like there's 2 seasons of subject matter for me to work with. Yeah, 2 seasons of anime an anime within, I don't know, it's been 8 years or something, 7 years, however long it is. It's pretty cool. He has obviously an interesting aesthetic, and he can go from like being disinterested to funny to being serious, which is nice. He's quite original, and obviously it's a parody of being the strongest. So I think he does a good job of being that kind of character of being the strongest. It's a little bit more original compared to other, immovable objects, but can't put him above Beta just because we don't know what's going to happen. I don't read the manga. This is an anime tier list. So yeah, he's going to go there. Sun Jingwoo. Okay, I'm saying that like Chinese. Sun Jinwoo. He is going just above Kirito with kind of two level up. Real life video game type beat characters are going to go together. I think it's a cool main character. He's got aura, that's for sure. Especially, I just watched the latest episode of season 2 of Solo Leveling. It's insane. The show is great. The animation is great. His powers are great. But he's just pretty unoriginal. I would say for maybe 2 reasons. First is that yes, he's got the cookie cutter storyline of he didn't have powers. Now he has these great powers. So that's pretty standard. But number two, like he goes from being a beta, even a E rank. What is that? Not a delta, an echo boy. To like being the super strong character, but there's no in between. Now all of a sudden he's super edgy. He's super confident. He's like all the girls want to be with him. It's all the hottest girls. It's all the hottest guys. They're all hanging out. At the CADS conference there, but he just doesn't have like any vulnerability. He's just a Terminator, and he becomes super, hardcore and edgy in such a short space of time. So I would like if they kind of did that a bit slower and showed a reason or his personality changing beyond the fact that he's just strong and he wants to like save, his family. Then we have Tanjiro. Oh, I'm so close to putting him in Sparky hair tier, even though his hair isn't that sparky. I'm gonna put him at pretty low B tier. And I'm sorry, I'm actually just gonna have to straight up move Ash right up there. And Boruto, I would say. And Tanjiro is gonna go there. And Midoriya is gonna go over there. But yeah, Tanjiro, he is cool character, cool powers. But again, he just trains hard. And he just doesn't have a lot of flavor. He's super basic. It's pretty meh, to be honest. So I'm actually gonna put him below Midoriya and Midoriya above Boruto. I think we're just shuffling a little bit now. Yeah, Tanjiro is pretty meh. I don't like that he's just always training hard and being a good guy. Nothing else going on. He wants to save Nezuko. Fantastic. Yeah, that's about it. Then we have Yuji Itadori. Let's do him first. Yuji, I'm gonna put it a pretty solid A tier. His relationships with people, Koji make him really cool. His relationship with Gojo, with me, as you can see, is really cool. Kind of cookie cutter storyline, but he carries himself with a bit of a swagger from the beginning. Without powers, he's it's cool. He beats everyone up. He helps everyone. He has this pretty touching story, and then his will to survive and help people when he eats Sakuna's finger. He's like he'll do anything. He's badass. So I'm gonna put him at a mid A tier for those reasons. Um, determined too, and his enjoyment of combat and his ruthlessness when defeating spirits is pretty sick.